Now?
Yep.
Wait a second, I'm not.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to the First Layer. My name is Richard Cleveland. This is Ask for Help. This is our live stream Saturday night, every Saturday night, unless we're under the weather. Speaking of being under the weather, Brian is not going to be joining us tonight. He is under the weather and just does not feel up to answering questions tonight. So it's just you guys and me, and my wife's going to be pointing out questions if I miss them. Tonight we only have one question in the email, so we're going to be taking your questions through the chat tonight. I just want to welcome the people that are here already. Robert Marvin, Johnny Gardner, Snapshot FPV. There's Parker Cooper, Tony Bradois. I'm sorry if I messed that up. We got David Sell. So we got people from Oregon here. We've got people from New York. We've got, where else we got here? We got Southern California. Well, Snapshot, I'm sorry it didn't start with the, we talked a little bit about that. We were going to try and spoof that. We just didn't think it would be too kid-friendly, so we didn't do it. And besides that, we didn't have any firearms to shoot at each other. So we felt the opening that we did was probably the best one for it. We've got, as you can see, I've got things in front of me tonight. They're all kind of rocket related. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Hey, there's Hoppy Nacky from New Zealand. We've got Georgia with Art Eckstein. Tony Broadus is in the U.S. We got Dan Adams in Michigan. And where else? We got John Kitchen. I did say John Kitchen already, I believe. Did I? No, I didn't. Okay, let's start with the first question here from Wayne Roberts, and then we'll get into your questions. So just hang on for a sec. Remember, I do have Super Chat turned on for if you want your questions brought to the front of the queue tonight. We can do that, and we do have this turned on tonight. Sorry, I got to turn my head.
Super Chat.
So we've got the Super Chat turned on for you tonight as well. All right, so he says. Wayne Roberts is asking, is there any info anywhere for a complete beginner to start with OctoPrint? Are you able to slice STLs on it? I have a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus installed Raspbian to start using it. Not sure where to go next. Sorry for the complete noob question. Well, it's not a noob question because when people are getting away from just using the regular interface, I have my assistant throwing things at me now. When we're just using the interface that comes with our 3D printers, there really isn't much more to it.
Screen.
Oh, I'm on the wrong camera. There we are. I'm on the wrong camera. That's okay. It's not quite 7 o'clock. So as I was saying, it's not a noob question. When you're getting started and you want to add something like OctoPrint, this is an outside program that you add to your 3D printer to help its functionality overall. And you'll be able to do things like time lapses and things like that. Now, some of the things that you should be aware of is if you're new to Raspbian and you're new to that environment, which is a Linux kernel environment, you want to do a little bit of reading, but if you want to dive in straight to what we've got going with OctoPrint, then the best guy that I have found, and I'm just going to pull up his page here right now, switch over to it. Wrong one. There we go. Okay, so this page here is...
Wrong camera.
No, I'm on the right camera.
Oh, here you go. Sorry.
You know, your assistant's
sorry.
looking at things that are happening 30 seconds ago.
I'm sorry.
I keep telling her, don't do that. Okay, so if you look here at OctoPrint tutorial series, this is by Joe Mike Taranella, I'm sorry. Joe Mike Taranella, great guy. This series on OctoPrint is probably the best series you're ever going to find on the subject. He takes you and holds your hand right from the very beginning, right through to more complicated and advanced user techniques. So that's where I would go first and foremost if I was going to set up any OctoPrint. That's the one that I particularly like. So we got that question out of the road. Let's go back to our chat and see what we've got going on here. Hey, there's Mark L. Baker. Welcome, sir. Been a while. Parker Cooper's asking, had a horrible first time with ABS. Wife bought a roll by mistake. Okay, ABS, if you're going to print ABS, it really needs to be in some sort of enclosure. That can be as simple as a cardboard box over top of your 3D printer. Now, the reason that you have to have it in an enclosure is because it has to be at somewhat of a constant temperature. And when you have an enclosure, it holds all that heat in and does climatize to a certain temperature. So your ABS won't curl off the bed or warp off the bed or start to split in the layers. The reason that it's doing that on an open air printer is because it's cooling too fast, essentially. And when it cools too fast, it shrinks. And it shrinks in very odd ways. So if you're going to use ABS and you want to try to do more things with it on an open air printer, just put a cardboard box over it. Get something like one of those Home Depot boxes that fits over your printer. And that will help at the beginning. Later on, if you plan on doing more and you really like the results, I would invest into making a proper enclosure for your printer, or get one of the commercial ones that are available. Hello to all the pros. There's LB Sharp. Thank you. Yes, I am off to the left a little bit. We're all fixed now. There's Trevor Rickard and Jerry Knapp, 3D Printing and Painting. Yeah, Snapshot FPV has a great idea. If you want to, just make yourself a frame out of plumbing pipe. 1/2-inch plumbing pipe will do with elbows. And you can drape some fabric over top of it, a thicker fabric or a blanket or something like that. Just keep in mind, though, that when you do that, you are adding stress onto the electronics because they're all heating up as well inside that enclosure. The fans that are above your electronics, trying to keep them cool, are there for that reason, to draw heat away and to keep your electronics cool. If they're in an enclosure for a long period of time, like you plan on doing this over and over and over again, you want to think about moving those electronics outside of the enclosure, because the enclosure will, over time, cause damage and cause them to fail prematurely. Hey, there's Ken Jansen. Welcome, sir. As you can see, I've got some rockets in front of me tonight. This is a business card style that my wife kind of mangled, taking off of her little printer. But here's a good result one. And we can kind of show you that on this camera right here. If I just cut to it. There we go. So you can see this little guy. And that camera's freezing. Oh, now it went out.
Well, you got it for a little bit.
I don't know what's wrong with that camera. It has a mind of its own. There we go. Now it's working again. So let's go back to this camera here and I'll show you this one more time. So here we have this little tiny rocket that my wife has wonderfully made. And I know it's not focusing very well. But this is on a little business card, something that you can make. Something that's really easy. All right. And then we've got this little guy here.
No, that's the same one. The little orange one I just gave you.
You know, she's trying to play director, and it's driving me crazy. So this is another one that she did, which comes on a very simple business card like that.
Sorry.
I love it when people just keep talking to me off camera. It just drives me
You
nuts.
should have mic'd me.
You ask her if she wants to be mic'd, she doesn't want to be mic'd. You want to ask her if she wants to be on camera, she doesn't want to be on camera. And now she says, you should have mic'd me. It's wonderful working with your wife when you're on camera. So this is another one that she did. And little rockets. I know we're kind of rockets, what's the word, fanboying these days. But we do have a lot to talk about. So, and I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that's on my desk today. As well, and as answering your questions. Mark Thibodeau, welcome. Hello from Ontario. Hello, sir. Robert Marvin, are you hiding on purpose? No, I'm not. I'm not trying to anyway. Okay, so based on what we're doing with 3D printing, there's a lot that you can do, and I want to hear from you guys over here in the chat tonight about what kind of projects you would like to see us do on the first layer. I want you to put those in the comments tonight down below. That way we get some idea of what you guys really want to see. And we'd be happy to do episodes, and we've done episodes in the past from viewer requests, and we really want to know what you guys would like to see us do. I know this summer we're kind of working on summer projects, and we're doing rockets and all kinds of crazy stuff, but I want to know what you guys would like us to do.
Did you move cameras?
Yes, I did.
You're on this camera.
I'm on this camera.
Oh my god. I'm telling you what I'm seeing.
I'm telling you what I'm seeing. Okay, stop looking at cameras, okay? I'm doing a show. Thanks. I'm on this camera. Okay, Hoppy Naki's asking or stating that he's starting to use Go away. I don't want to see your...
That's what everyone's seeing.
Okay, starting to use Open SCAD for my dimensional drawings. A bit hard at the start, but now really like it. Very easy to copy paste blocks of code. I'm not using blocks of code. When I use a 3D modeling program, I'm using Fusion 360. Open SCAD is a great program. Don't get me wrong. I think it's awesome. I think it's great to use. However, that being said, I just found that moving from Tinkercad to Fusion 360 was a little bit easier for me. And that's how I was able to take a two-dimensional drawing and put it into a three-dimensional object. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. We'll move the other camera in just a few minutes. So if you are going to get into 3D modeling, there are several different programs out there that you can use. There's Fusion 360, there's Tinkercad, there's OpenSCAD, there's a whole host of them. Just give a look. You can use Mesh Mixer to some degree as well. Just go out there, have a look on Google, do a search for them. And again, if there's anything that you guys would like to see us do here on the show, just drop us a line or put it in tonight's comments down below, and we'd really, really appreciate that. Not that we're running out of content, because I've got shows lined up for a while, but... So let's go and take a look at 3D printing and painting. Says, I can send you Brandy if you want two. No, I have one. That's enough. Thanks. Marriage, it's a wonderful thing. Yes, it is. A quick hello, having a family barbecue from KKP 3D. There's Tim. Well, you enjoy your barbecue, Tim. Oops, things. Yeah. I hear you. And no, Mark, I don't want Pam. You can keep her. I have my own Jerry. My wife has two modes. She has Geraldine, which is a wonderful, beautiful woman. And then she has Evil Jerry, which is that one that just keeps nattering in your ear. And she's the one that does all kinds of strange things. I know when I die, if she outlives me, please check her for the one who killed me. It would have been Evil Jerry, her other personality. Rex Waldy would like to see an episode on removing support material. I would love to do that. Yes, absolutely. There are several different ways that you can remove support material. But where it starts is in the slicer. And we're going to talk about that when we do an episode on that. My wife's writing that down right now. Hey, there's Richard Taylor. Good evening, everyone. He's giving us a beer. Are TMC 2225s any good? Trevor Rickard. I've never tried them. I imagine that they are. They're somewhat of a TSC driver. So if you're into trying them, I would give them a try. I usually use 2208s or 2209s. Those are the two that I typically use. 3D printing and painting goes, then rocket bounces off Richard's head. LOL. Yes, she could throw these. I'm sure of it. She could throw these. Speaking of rockets, let's talk a little bit about this guy. This was the one that we built and flew. This has a cardboard tube, 3D printed fins, 3D printed nose cone, 3D printed boat tail, and then it has the regular cardboard inserts for the motor mount and, of course, for the body. Now, this launch lug that you see right here on top, this is where the rod goes through to help your rocket guide straight as it's going up. This was also 3D printed. Now, in stark contrast, this is the nose cone for our new rocket. This one has some defects. We are reprinting this, but this nose cone is printed all out of PLA for now. I am going to print it out of PETG, but this is the size of the nose cone. Now you look at the size of the nose cone to the size of this rocket, and it's about 2/3 the size. Almost 2/3 of what the actual other rocket is. So it is. This rocket that we're doing is quite large. This is what we call a mid-power rocket. So this will use the same type of propellants that were used in the space shuttle, the solid rocket propellants, on an E, F, and G style engines. Here is the motor mount that I have designed in Fusion 360. Now, doing cylinders and circles is easy. Where it gets hard is making those tolerances between the parts. This part is a little bit too big to fit into our rocket, so I have to scale it down just a couple of microns. Richard, a question. Never heard of it referred to as BL or B4 SLA. Can it do TPU-like materials? There is a soft material in SLA that is almost like a TPU. There is a flexible material that you can buy, yes. And that's from Snapshot. What's your opinion on junction deviations versus classic jerk? Having ringing and ghosting currently, even with lowered acceleration and junction deviation. I'm not using junction deviation. I'm using classic jerk on all of my machines. I tried using junction deviation on the Ender 3 with the upgraded board. And that was the Big Tree Tech board, the E3D dip. And I had so many problems, I just went back to classic jerk, and it's been working ever since for me, Eric. Parker Cooper, on the Ender 3, why install a new board? What are the upgrades? The reason that I upgraded the board is, one, it processes information much faster than the 8-bit board because it is a 32-bit board. Secondly, it has a little bit more EEPROM memory, so it can pull in more information from the SD card that an 8-bit board can't do. And the classic boards that are in the Ender 3s are only 8-bit boards. That's why I did the upgrade. 3D printing and painting, never heard of resin soft like TPU. There is a flexible resin that is available. You just have to check it out. Beaker 19, what is the best material to make a ball socket? I tried PLA and PETG, but they both snapped the tabs off. Try going to ABS. You're going to have a little bit more flexibility in the material, I find. So yeah, that's what I would try and do. Just go to ABS and see if that works out for you. And remember your tolerances. If it's too tight, if there's too much stress on it, it is going to snap. Breaker 19, what's the best material to make? Well, I did that one already. Eric B is my next one. I'm on an Ender 3 Pro with an E3 dip board. Thank you. I'll look into recompiling with Classic Jerk. There you go. Hey, there's Benny Brady. Howdy. Hoppy Nacky, I've bought some stepper motors to allow me to make a filament winder. The spec says that the voltage is 3.6 volts. I thought that the voltage should be 12 volts via a driver. 3.6 volts seems low. It all depends on what you're driving. 3.6 volts might be the way to go. I don't know which one you're building, so I'm not really sure. Trevor Rickard, how to dismantle junction deviation, or how do you disable it? I believe there's just you just have to put two little slashes in front of it in the Marlin file. It should be in configuration H file. You just put a couple little slashes in front of it that will turn it off. Just make sure that you turn on Classic Jerk by taking those two away in front of Classic Jerk. Thoughts on the Bondtech BMG? RT, are you talking about the direct drive or are you talking about the Bowden drive? Because I have a Bowden drive BMG on mine. Yeah, that's sorry, my throat's a little dry today. Because if you've got the direct drive, I don't know much about it because I don't use it. My machines are all pretty much, with the exception of a couple machines upstairs, are all basically Bowden drives. I have the Bowden one. I think it works great. Okay, Ben's got it right there. He says, Trevor, in Marlin 2.0, if you turn on Classic Jerk, junction deviation will automatically be turned off. The Bondtech BMG, I really like it. It works great. There is a bit of an issue when you are trying to change your filament. This is the one thing that I found when changing filament using that particular unit. When it comes back through the actual extruder and the gears in the extruder, if you haven't pulled fast or geared fast backwards after you've heated it up and let a little bit of material flow through, you'll get a little bulb on the end of your plastic. And when you get that little bulb, it will get stuck in the gears. And then you have to open up the thing and sometimes have to take it apart to get rid of that little bulb. But other than that, it works fine. It works flawless. I've put many different types of materials through it, and it just works. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about this guy. So this is the motor mounts for the big rocket that's on my desk. This will use a 29 millimeter motor, whereas this one only uses an 18 millimeter motor. So you can see that there's a huge difference in the size. Now, the problem I'm going to have with this is that I have to make sure that the ejection gases don't deform any of this plastic. So I may have to put in a cardboard liner. So that's something I'm talking to another expert, a Rocketry expert about, to make sure that I can use this. If I put in a cardboard liner, yes, it's kind of cheating, but it might give us a successful flight. Now, you'll see that I put a hole in this top centering ring right there. This is the top centering ring, this is the bottom centering ring. And the reason that there's so much space here is because there's a boat tail that is going to be going onto this rocket like this. This is called a boat tail. And this will go on, and then there will be a section that sticks out. And that section that sticks out is going to receive a lock-on collar. So when I put the engine in, or the motor in, I can just screw a cap on there, and it'll keep the motor in place, and it won't allow it to go forward, and it won't allow it to come out of the rocket. Is it a red rocket? No, it is not a red rocket. Well, let me rephrase that. Yes, it is a red rocket. This is based, here's the rocket here, and it doesn't quite fit into frame, but this is based on the Ragnar rocket, which is red. From Apogee Components, they designed this rocket and gave the instructions away for free, and it was inside one of their recent issues of Peak of Flight magazine or newsletter. And so I took all those measurements and designed, upscaled it from what it was to house a much bigger engine, which, as you can see, doesn't quite fit in there. It doesn't quite fit in there. But the boat tail fits, so that's a start. But you can see that this is actually only 2 walls thick. That's all this is. It's just 2 walls thick. This is our launch lug. We have one at the bottom, one at the top. The fins are only 1/8 of an inch thick. They're not very, very thick, but here's what I think is going to happen is that this is going to give me some wiggle as it's going up. These ones not so much, but these ones could give me a bit of a problem going up. If I get that, it's going to cause the rocket to flail around a little bit, and that could be disastrous, or could not happen, and we could have a great flight. Now, again, all of this was designed in Fusion 360, and I am learning Fusion a little bit every day, so when I get to the point where I'm comfortable enough with it, I'm going to take you guys through it. In the meantime, if you really want to get started with Fusion 360, my suggestion to you would be look at Lars Christensen on YouTube. He has a great set of tutorials on how to become proficient with Fusion 360. He's the guy I follow, and I recommend him highly to all of you guys. No more questions so far. Wow, we're only at the halfway mark. I'm running out of things to talk about. So normally I have Brian here. So when we go out and launch this guy, we are going to be making 3 of these. One is going to be fully 3D printed. One will be like we did with this missile here, where we only have 3D printed fins, lugs, and nose cone. And then one will be traditional building methods with cardboard tubes, balsa wood fins, all that kind of stuff. That one is going to take significantly longer. All the parts for this took about 4 days to print at this size. And you'll see that I've had to seam it right here in the middle. So what I did was, for the body tube, I just basically cut it in half and made 2 parts. And I'm going to have to do that with the cardboard tubes as well, because the cardboard tubes don't come long enough for me for what I want to do. But I think this is all done in PLA. This is just a prototype, just to kind of see how things are going to fit. And once I get the fits down for that, then I will go ahead and print the entire thing in PETG, and then we'll paint it up in our classic purple and gray and white, and we will take it out to the launch field along with the two others and see which one goes the highest and performs the best based on the type of engine that we're using. Now, we're planning on using an F-style engine, and based on simulations in some software that I have called RockSim, that particular software will allow me to do simulations to see how high it's going to go based on the engine and weight of the rocket. This rocket comes in with all of its parts with an engine at just a little over 500 grams. So it's still not that heavy, really. 500 grams, not that bad. So I think it'll fly well. I think it'll do about 300 to 360, 370 meters high, and we'll film that all for you guys and let you know. Wallpaper tubes or Xmas paper tubes? No, I'm actually using tubes that are made for model rocketry. Yes, you can certainly use wallpaper tubes and tubes from Christmas wrapping and your toilet paper tubes and your paper towel tubes. You could certainly use all of those. They will all work just fine. You don't have to put a coating on them, but you do need to prep them properly so that they don't absorb paint. So I would probably put a glue base on them, watered down PVA glue. Just kind of paint the whole thing in that, sand it down, and then I adjust your paint, or just for your painting. Eric B., do you have any recommended places, channels to start learning Fusion 360 from? Yes, I just talked about it. Lars Christensen on YouTube is probably the best place to go. Lars is the best guy that I know. A very friendly individual, very up energy when he's teaching you, and he does really walk you through Fusion 360. Mirror tile for bed on the Ender 3. Yes, I would recommend that. Mirror or glass. I recommend mirror or glass for any bed, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't like the magnetic beds that are just that flimsy, floppy fridge magnet material. They don't hold up well. You're going to be replacing them if you're doing a lot of 3D printing. You're going to be replacing them fairly soon. If they don't have a properly adhered magnet to the bed, and I've had a couple of questions come into me this week about that, I would certainly go ahead and get rid of all the magnetics off the top of your bed and replace it with a piece of glass or a piece of mirror. Yes, absolutely. Do you have a BL Touch installed on your Ender 3? If so, can I get your configuration files? Marv, my configuration files won't do you any good because I am using the configuration files for the Big Tree E3D dip or E3 dip board, SKR board, so they may not do you any good. If you're going to be adding a BL Touch to your existing Ender 3, there is a great set of files available to you from Creality. You are going to need to put a bootloader on your system if you didn't buy the version of the V1 version of the BL Touch kit, the Creality BL Touch kit. You're going to have to use an Arduino like this and use a series of wires coming out of these 6 pins to put a bootloader onto your Ender 3 board and then upload the new firmware. Snapshot FPV. Sorry, my suggestion's not up to snuff. I'm like 8 beers in for a Saturday. Parker Cooper, I'm using Captain tape on my Mono 3. Captain tape's fine. I find it a little expensive. But yeah, if Captain tape is working for you, that's great. I've used it before. I usually use it when I have a really warped bed. I'll use it in the low spots, and I'll just add a piece in there to kind of bring it up so that my glass over time doesn't conform to that. Have you ever heard of, this is Breaker 19, have you ever heard of a King Rune printer? It's cheap, but kind of kicks ass. It has 32-bit board, and it's way faster than the stock Ender. I have not heard of this printer. Please, in the comments below, send me a link to it, and I will be happy to have a look at it. And maybe we can talk a little bit about it more next week. Any experience with the Wham Bam flexible build system? The Wham Bam flexible build system. I have not gotten one. I have reached out to them to get one. They've never gotten back to me. I guess I'm just not big enough for them on the channel. But at the end of the day, I know people that have it, and some people love it, some people hate it. It's just another flexible bed system, very much like the Buildtech flex plate system. It's almost identical in a lot of ways. It has a spring steel sheet, only they're using PEI on the bed, and instead of using a different type of plastic. So Marv Ellis, I put a CR-10S board in it. You put a CR-10S board in your Ender 3? Wow, good for you. Then you should not have to do a bootloader on it. You should be able to just upload the software. Just make sure that you're on the right port and that you're using the Arduino Mega drivers, okay? Marv Ellis, I lost the files you sent. Eric B, ask Chris Riley about his contact over there. Yeah, I'll do my best. I've contacted them directly. I've talked to Tim about it, and I've just never gotten one. TH3D better band for your buck, or I think that's better bang for your buck over the flex bed mat. Got any trimmer line stories? Trimmer line? I'm not sure what you mean by that. MB, trimmer line stories. I'm not sure where we're at there. I want to remind you that we do have t-shirts still available on our shopthefirstlayer.com. We're going to start putting up some files there. The files that we put up for now will be no charge. If there is a charge, it'll be a very small charge, like maybe $1 or $2. Nothing too serious. The files for this guy, if you guys are interested in printing, when I do finalize all the files on it, I will put it up on our shopthefirstlayer.com. Those files will be free to you guys, and you'll be able to get them there. Painting or printing with Weed Whacker line. I've never tried printing with Weed Whacker line because it's too thick. It's about 3 mil. I haven't really seen it much smaller than that. Out here in Canada anyway, it's about 3 mil. Maybe Ben can share a story. Breaker 19, where's the other dude? I forgot his name. Brian is under the weather this evening and will not be with us tonight. We do wish him well, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery. I talked to him earlier in the day, and he's just been under the weather all day. So, it is COVID season. So, Archie, how often should you replace the belts on your printer? If you've been maintaining your printer on a regular basis, your belts should be okay. maybe once a year, maybe once every year and a half, replace those belts. I haven't changed the belts on any of my printers yet. I haven't had to. They will stretch over time and you'll get sloppier prints. And this is a good example right here. You guys can see those rough lines on there. Maybe. Yeah, there you can see them a little bit. But they're not complete. This is not a completely clean print for that nose cone. So I have a little bit of adjustment to do on mine. No, I keep forgetting to bring them to him. They're sitting right here waiting for me to bring them to his house. And he never comes to my house. Joseph Jolly, is there a manual for how to use Cura? There is a manual, not a physical manual. Let me rephrase that. Not a physical manual. If you look under, if you go to the marketplace and you download the Cura user's guide, it will install into your version of Cura. That user guide is so much information. I've talked about that user guide on several of my introductions to Cura videos for different versions of it, and that user's guide is your best bet for using Cura. So go check out one of those. It'll show you exactly how to download it and add it to your Cura. Quality on PC looks great. For some reason, wasn't so good on TV. Strange. Gary the Jedi, Weed Whacker line is nylon. Yes, it is nylon. And the other thing about nylon, of course, it has to be printed at a very high temperature. And it also needs to be put through an all-metal hot end. And what's the other thing? It needs to be in an enclosure. Up here, it's nylon. Ben's saying it's usually polypropylene. Not all the time. No, Breaker 19, he does not have COVID-19. He just under the weather today.
The migraine.
Any ideas how you smooth out the pimples on the Ender 3 Pro bed mat? I'm thinking those are the air bubbles that you're getting, Mark Baker. If it is the air bubbles, it's all a matter of adjusting that mat so that it lays down flat. The magnets that are on that thing, because they're so darn thin, they will oppose each other at some point. And when they do, that mat's not going to sit on there straight. The more you try to put it on straight, the more you're going to find you'll get a little ripple, or you might get a little air bubble, or something's not sitting right. You just kind of have to do your best and line it up, or just like I do, throw it in a box, get a piece of glass, and put a piece of glass on it. Pimples. Dimples. If you're looking because of the texture of it, there's nothing you can do. Again, just throw it away and go get yourself a piece of glass. Yes, I will be seeing Jess and Brian next week. And we'll be going to do some stuff out at their place. Any tips? This is from Henry Gibbons Goldsmith, or Gibson Goldsmith. Any tips for printing PETG? I've had no luck. Stringing and warping are some of the worst problems. But I also get little holes, lack of filament in the sidewall. Okay, here's what's happening. First of all, your bed might be too hot. If you're getting warping off the bed, your bed's a little too hot. So bring it down by 5 degrees. As far as the stringing goes, that's got to do with retraction and how much moisture is in your filament. If your filament has been left out for a couple of days in a humid climate, guess what? It's going to absorb moisture through the air. There was a video put out by somebody last year who soaked a whole bunch of filament in water and then ran it through his machine after it had dried and tried to dispel the myth of the hygroscopic nature of plastics. Well, that's not how hygroscopic nature of the plastics work. It's not going to absorb physical water, but it is going to absorb moisture from the air. So what I would do is play with your retraction a little bit. More retraction will take away some of that stringing. Lower the heat on the bed to avoid the warping. And as far as the holes go, make sure your nozzle is hot enough and it's not dripping or causing it to not come out in a continuous stream. Also, if there's moisture in it, that it will show up in your print as a little hole because that moisture is now trapped as a trapped air bubble. It'll show up as an air bubble. Breaker 19, I was curious what bottle caps are made out of. Turns out it's called polypropylene. They call it PP, I think. Have you ever tried to print with PP? No, I have not. It is a product that I do want to try. But like ABS, my understanding is it does have a high odor to it. And I believe it does need to be printed with an enclosure. Ben Brady put glass on it. I agree, 100%. Peter Sandy, hi again. Hope you had a great week. We did have a good week around here. Mike Hunt, do you know if there is a direct drive extruder kit mod for the CR-10S Pro? I believe there is. There should be one both from Bondtech. I think there's one now from Micro Swiss, and there may be one from E3D, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we've hit that halfway point already. Wow, we're way past the halfway point. We're almost 3/4 of the way through the show tonight. Again, we have the super chat turned on. If I answered your questions and you got something out of it. Oh, there we go. Mr. Tremblay. Let me find that little
super chat.
What do you think about Delta Printer? And do you try newer release of the FL Sun QQS Pro? Thanks. Delta printers are fine. I think they have their place in the market. I don't own one. I have used them. I've never been quite successful with them. I've never had a great success with them. So all of my machines are Cartesian machines. And as far as the FL Sun QQS Pro goes, I really don't know much about that particular printer. I have been in touch with FL Sun, and we'll just see what happens in the future. Ben Brady says, put a Chimera on it. Yeah, you could put a Chimera on it. Is Breaker 19, is that Superman bust behind you a 3D print you did? Yes, it is, actually. This is something I've been working on. I haven't worked on it in a while because we've had other things going. This is a half-scale Superman bust. As you can tell, I'm not finished painting any of this down here. It's just roughed in. But the skin texture is pretty much done. The hair is pretty much done. Have a little bit of work to do on the eyes. Have to still gloss the lips, gloss the eyes. But this is fully 3D printed. Was printed on the CR-10S and was done in 2 parts. So there's the base. And there's Superman himself. And yeah, this painting, I've probably got about 100 hours just in doing the skin and the hair in painting so far. And we will finish this and we'll again show it off, and it'll remain in the back for now. This is another piece that I've painted. I don't know how well that's going to show up. There's Han. A little bit of work still to do on him. Just minor stuff. Yes, Superman is from Meg's Empanado. Or Empanada. Empanada. It's one of those two. And Superman is all hand painted. There is no airbrushing done on him whatsoever. He's all hand painted. What kind of paints are you using and what material is it printed in? It's printed in PLA, and there's a combination of Liquitex paints. There's some washes in there or some inks. There's some other paints. I believe it is the Spanish name. I'm losing it. Vallejo. Those are the other paints that I use as well. So yeah, they're just regular acrylic paints that you can even get away with using dollar store acrylic paints if you use them right. Harry Gibson Goldsmith. I've also had troubles with Marlin 2.0. I get a lot of thermal runaway compared to the stock CR-10S, and it limits my temps to 255, so I can't do temp towers any higher. Go in and have a look at the temperatures in Marlin 2.0. Bump them up. You should be able to max out at 265, not 255. There is probably something in there preventing you from going beyond 255 and getting thermal runaways. There's something wrong with the thermistor settings in your compilation or compiling of code. Hand looks better. Superman looks mad. Yeah, I didn't sculpt it. I just painted it. So, excuse me. Well, if we don't have many more questions, we might come pretty close to the end here tonight. I want to show off one thing that we're going to be giving away to kids at our next launch. My wife found these online. It's just it's a holder for your pencil, and then a little topper for the top of your pencil. I'll give her back this mechanical pencil because I have a regular pencil. Right here on my desk. There we go. So we've got a topper that goes right on the eraser like so. And then it sits inside your little pencil holder. I think this is kind of cool. We're going to be giving these away at our next launch. And we'll bring you guys along for the ride on that one as well. Is direct drive worth it, and what are your thoughts on Micro Swiss hot end? Well, I'll tell you my thoughts on the Micro Swiss hot end. I use them all the time. I think Micro Swiss has got a great product, and I think that their upgrades for the CR-10, the Ender 3, anything in the Creality line is well worth the money spent on that hot end. Direct drive, I'm not convinced it's worth it. Remember, when you add a direct drive to your X gantry, you are now adding additional weight. So you're going to be printing slower than you would with a Bowden. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, it is hard going solo. I'm going to try and stretch it out here for another 10 minutes if I can. Just ask me your questions, guys. Just keep them coming in, and we'll do our best to answer them here in the next 10 minutes. Other than that, yeah, this is. I want to get back to this for a second because this has been an interesting engineering project, and I'm no engineer. Believe me, I am no engineer. I think that this is turning out better than I originally planned it. LB Sharp, is Micro Swiss good enough for Nylon X? Oh, absolutely. I think it is. I think it'll work fine for nylon. When I was at Spool 3D, we ran nylon through, I think, one or two Micro Swiss hot ends, and it worked just fine. You know I love you all, even behind the scenes. Keep it up. Thank you very much, Snapshot. We're going to do our best. Brian will be back with us next week. We've got a show coming up this Wednesday that is on... What was this week coming, honey?
It's about
Some useful 3D prints on something.
the games.
Oh, games, yes. Coming up this Wednesday, we've got a video on another useful household prints, this time for your vacation. You know, if you're going on vacation, you got the kids with you, you're going camping, there's some stuff that you can make on your 3D printer and take out to the beach with you and have some fun with. RT, someone asked if I can print them a statue of their front yard. Best material. Statue for their front yard. I'm sorry, I misread that. I would say either do it in not PLA, but ABS or PETG. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, you can just do it out of PLA.
Louis Eric Simard, Marlin versus RepRap firmware. Thoughts? I don't use RepRap firmware. I've done a little bit of looking into it, but I haven't really done a whole lot. Sensor error or not enough power error and hot end not heating up. Have you had this before and how did you fix it? Guy the Jedi. No, I have not seen that error before. If you're running into power issues and it's, you're getting sensor error issues, I would say to, first of all, replace your sensors. And I'm assuming you're meaning the thermistors. I would replace the thermistors first, because if the thermistor fails, the hot end's not going to get to temperature, or it's going to get too hot. Can you still use, Trevor Rickards asking, can you still use Atom to install Marlin 2.0? As far as I know, yes. Breaker19, can you give me a few names of 3D print suppliers on Patreon? I don't know a lot, really. I don't. I would just go to Patreon and just look up 3D printing. 1945 Bozo, plotting with Ender 3. Plotting with Ender 3. I've never tried it. That would be something for me to try. I do have an Ender 3. We are going to be reviewing a printer coming up here pretty soon from Two Trees. We still also have the E-Cube Maker 4-in-1 Toy DIY coming up. Ben is saying Atom is no longer supported by Platform IO, so maybe you can't. You would have to go to what is the software? I know it's in here. It is a Visual Studio Code is the stuff that you're going to have to use. Visual Studio Code. 3D printing and painting. Tons of Patreon posts on my group. If that's what you're looking for. Yeah, VS Code, Video Studio Code. All right, well, I am going to end it here tonight. And I thank you guys all for joining me this evening. Thank you again for the super chats. Thanks for the likes. Please put your comments down below tonight for anything that you would like to see us do in the future as far as episodes go, so that we can help you guys a little bit better. We always look for your suggestions, and we do take them into account when we are planning out our next videos. So until I see you guys next time, which will be Wednesday, when we give you our video on stuff to take camping and so on with you, I do want you to remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. And thanks again for joining me here on a Saturday night. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you Wednesday.